Today on Sports Central, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on a big matchup coming up here in Week 7 of this 2021 college football season, and it'll be over the Oklahoma State Cowboys and the Texas Longhorns. Huge matchup for both these teams heading into Week 7. We'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today, starting out with your team trends. Oklahoma State, a couple weeks ago, beat Baylor. 24-14 was the final score there. Baylor was ranked 21st in the nation at the time, and they're still a solid football team. So overall, Oklahoma State's looking very good right now. They had a bye week last week. They're still undefeated, and they're coming off of 3 straight quality wins. So, yeah, Oklahoma State, that is a team that is, they've been a dark horse in the Big 12 over the past year. This entire offseason, we were hearing about Oklahoma and Iowa State and Texas, but this Oklahoma State team is looking very good right now, and this could be a quality win for the Cowboys without a doubt as well. For Texas, they lost to Oklahoma last week, 48-55. They had no business losing that game. Texas led it for about 3 quarters, and then Oklahoma, of course, stormed back in the 4th quarter and ended up stealing the win, which for Texas, you got to finish. They were up 20-7, I think, at one point, so obviously that was a brutal loss. It was quite a game to watch, but Texas, of course, the Longhorns definitely had that game, but Oklahoma stole it from them. So, yeah, Texas is still a very talented team. They're ranked number 25, and they're 4-2, so they've got 2 losses on the board now, but still I think Texas is a very talented football team, still capable of making it to a solid bowl game. Game will be on Saturday, October 16th in Austin, Texas. So Longhorns are the home team in this matchup. It'll be at 11 a.m. Central Time. So we got a morning kickoff here for Texas and Oklahoma State. Spread currently has Longhorns by 5.5. Over/under is 60. And your FPI is going with Texas here, 78.4%. So FPI is going heavy on Texas, 78%. And Oklahoma State is ranked 13 positions above them. But the spread is going Texas by 5.5. So even the spread's going with Texas somewhat heavily here. But, not too surprising. Texas being the home team here, and Oklahoma State, we haven't seen them in a couple of weeks. But, Oklahoma State, this team definitely is capable of winning this game. The Cowboys are, they're coming off of 3 straight quality wins, which we'll be going over in just a second here. But, they've proven over the past 3 games that they've played that they're a good football team. Series history, Texas leads at 26-9. So, Longhorns have got a long, successful history of playing Oklahoma State. Win streak is Texas by 2, and in the last 10, though, Oklahoma State is leading at 6-4. So, in recent history, over the past decade, or the last 10 games, Oklahoma State has been overall the better team in this matchup. Here's your stat comparison for this game. Oklahoma State's got 25 points per game, kind of a low number, but they are allowing 18 points allowed per game so far this season. 219 pass yards a game, 159 rush yards, and then for yards allowed, 214 passing, and then 91 rushing. So this Oklahoma State team does have a solid rushing defense with only 91 rush yards allowed so far this season, which in the Big 12, the Big 12 is a very heavy offensive conference. We all know that, but Oklahoma State's defense has played pretty well so far this season. Texas has 44 points per game, 29 points allowed, 234 pass yards a game, 245 rush yards, and then for yards allowed, 240 passing, and then 198 for rushing. Recent matchups for each of these teams, Oklahoma State, of course, has beaten Baylor, Kansas State, and Boise State in their last 3 games there. Kansas State was ranked 25th at the time that they beat them, and Boise State, they just beat BYU this past weekend. So that was a big win for the Broncos there, and so it makes Oklahoma State look better as well because it makes that win look even more like a quality win for the Cowboys here. So, yeah, of course, they beat Baylor 24-14, beat Kansas State by 11, Boise State by 1 on the road, big win. Then, of course, they beat Tulsa by 5 and Missouri State by a touchdown. So at the beginning of the season, many people were questioning the Cowboys just because, when you're beating Tulsa, a pretty terrible football team, by only 5, and Missouri State, an FCS team, by a touchdown, there were some questions there. But overall, Oklahoma State has proven that they're a good football team based off of their quality wins over the past 3 games. For Texas, they lost to Oklahoma there, beat TCU 32-27, blew out Texas Tech 70-35. That was a very surprising score, but definitely a good win. And they beat Rice 58-0, and then lost to Arkansas there 21-40. That was a tough loss on the road in Fayetteville. So overall for Texas, this is a solid football team. They've had some great games, but also some bad games. And the inconsistency here is definitely something that needs to be fixed for Texas if they're going to be national contending football team. Some key points here: Oklahoma State is 5-0, coming off of 3 straight quality wins once again, coming off of a bye week as well. Defense has been solid so far for Oklahoma State. I mean, you could argue the Cowboys do have the best defense in the Big 12 right now, looking at their stats. But I mean, overall, Texas is still this is still a good Texas football team that offensively is very talented. They've got lots of firepower on offense, and I mean, once again, they scored 48 points on Oklahoma yesterday and still lost. So, I mean, this defense does need to show up here in this matchup if they want to win. But yeah, I'd say Texas, though, is definitely one of the better 2-loss teams in the country. I mean, they lost to Arkansas and Oklahoma, but I mean, especially in that Oklahoma game, like if you look at them at the start of that matchup when they were up 20-7, I mean, that looked like a top 10 football team there with Texas, but in the end, Texas did end up losing. That's what, I mean, you got to finish if you're going to be a top 10 football team. So, yeah, for Texas, got to get that figured out, but they also have the home field advantage. That will be helpful, guarantee you, for the Longhorns. But with that said, let's get to the prediction here for Oklahoma State and Texas. I'm going to go with Texas here to pull the win off 35-31. I mean, I went back and forth on this one several times. Either team could definitely win this matchup. But I think Texas being at home here, I mean, coming off of a brutal loss, I mean, that could either do one of two things. It could motivate them to get a huge win in this game, or it could definitely be a major negative effect on them mentally, and they could have a bad game. But I think it'll strengthen them mentally, and I think that they'll be motivated, fired up, and ready to go. And Texas will get a win 35-31 over a good football team. Like, once again, should have been Oklahoma last week, but you got to mentally play 4 quarters, and we did not see that last week out of Texas. So if they can finish this football game, they should get a win. I think Texas is, I mean, both teams are very talented, but Texas in particular, there's a lot of talent that stands out on this football team, and it's a very young football team as well. So, yeah, Texas, without a doubt. I mean, this team is, they got a lot of potential. But, yeah, probability 55% towards Texas. So, once again, I mean, if you're betting the spread, it's a tricky one because, I mean, it could easily go either way. I mean, I could easily see Oklahoma State winning this game as well. But your over is 60. I am taking the over in this matchup by a decent margin with 66 total points right now. But let me know your thoughts and comments below on this game, and I appreciate you guys all watching like always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you guys later.